Hey there, this is Natalie, and in this video I want to talk about the supposed leaks for chapter 138 of the Attack on Titan manga. Now, I'll go into what the story is according to the leaks, which I honestly think will make it the most divisive ending to a popular series in decades, and what I think about it from an analysis perspective in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about the nature of these alleged leaks themselves. If you saw my video about the chapter 137 leaks, this is a very different situation, and so the chances of these leaks being actual leaks, rather than just some popular fan theories that have been presented as leaks, is much lower. When we're a couple of days away from the chapter coming out, it's often the case that accurate leaks exist, where the manga is at that point ready to print, and a lot more people from the industry have had to have seen it for it to have been prepared for publication. When leaks that claim to have come out in that way happen, and we're looking at translations of them on Reddit or wherever, they carry a fair amount of credibility. And as was the case with the chapter 137 leaks, they often turn out to be true. It's too early for leaks like that to exist for chapter 138 though, and I expect we'll start seeing them in early March. This means any accurate leaks for this chapter would have had to come from a source far closer to the author, and that's not unheard of, but it's a lot more rare. There are also various versions of the chapter 138 leaks that all tell a similar story, but with some significant differences in what's included, where the chapter ends, and some other details. So it seems like even if one of these sets of spoilers is real, there is also some guessing going around, presented as leaks. However, the stuff in the chapter 138 leaks is certainly plausible, and doesn't especially go against expectations for what Isayama might do for the climax of Attack on Titan. There's also, of course, the possibility that the leaks aren't real leaks, and are instead fan theories, but that they turn out to be true or close to true anyway. A lot of people are convinced the leaks are genuine. Other people want them to be genuine, and in the comments of my chapter 137 video, there were a good percentage of people saying both that they believed this was what was going to happen next, and that they wanted this climax. But where I'm not at all convinced that the leaks are leaks rather than just a good theory, it's still interesting to talk about as a chapter that could exist, and it's interesting to think about what it would mean for the Attack on Titan series climax to actually go this way. So, the leaks, which there are various versions of you can find, but I'm using the version tweeted by Twitter user @AllHailErin, which I'm showing on the screen, all focus on the idea that Eren has not been inside the Founding Titan for all of this time. Instead, he's been crystallized on Paradise Island and using the power of the Warhammer Titan to remotely control his Founding Titan form. He also, using the Attack Titan's ability to see the future, knew that Zeke was going to die in this battle, and that the Beast Titan would be inherited by Historia's baby. The chapter starts with the rumbling having stopped, and the Founding Titan's body just kind of crumbling, but then Eren uncrystallizes himself and goes to the place where Historia has just given birth, to a baby which of course has royal blood, and has also inherited Zeke's Titan. Historia has passed out from the stress of being in labour, and Eren takes the baby, and by touching it, orders the rumbling to reactivate. The scene changes back to the Alliance, and they're shocked to see the colossal titans starting to move again. The only option they really have left is to try to fight the wall titans themselves, but of course there are millions of them, so this was always going to be futile. Annie and Reiner both die trying to protect their parents, who also die, and Peak, Connie, and even Levi and Mikasa die in battle. The only survivors are Falco, who in his transformed state can fly above the rumbling, and Gabby and Armin, who he manages to protect. Eren and Ymir are shown watching this, and Eren is regretful, but he has to keep moving forward. His objective is to use the rumbling to destroy everyone, including Eldians, other than the remaining people on Paradise Island, giving them their freedom. So that's the gist of it. There are various different variations in versions of the leaks, including some having an extra scene with Yelena and Kiyomi, and some having Historia awake and resisting when Eren tries to take the baby, But these main plot points, including the deaths, are present in all of the versions I've seen. Now, let's talk about the things that make these leaks seem plausible. They do make sense of a lot of elements in the story that have been previously underused. It had always been established that if a Titan Shifter dies without their ability being passed on, that Titan Shifter ability is assigned to a random baby Eldian. This, however, basically never seems to have happened anywhere else in the story, so it being a setup for Zeke's Titan being passed on to a baby gives there a reason for that bit of lore existing. It also makes Historia's pregnancy, and honestly Historia's existence in the story, actually pay off, because that was always something that seemed like it was going to be important, but hadn't been touched on at all for a long time. A baby being born at just the right time, being key to the climax, makes a lot of sense. Naturally, all of this stuff would seem like way too much of a gambit if it wasn't for the Attack Titan's established ability to know the future, so it would be possible for Eren, and only Eren, to have a plan like this. It would explain why Eren didn't get frustrated about having to wait to touch Zeke in the first place. He needed to wait for the right time to start the rumbling anyway, for the birth of Historia's baby to line up. And most of all, it would explain why Eren so badly needed to get his hands on the Warhammer Titan. With the Tiber family keeping it hidden away, the declaration of war was the only opportunity Eren would have had to get the War Titan Shifter ability, and yet he hasn't really needed it specifically for any part of his plans yet. It's been a useful addition, but the Warhammer wasn't a huge threat to the rumbling, and there are surely ways he could have come into contact with Zeke without needing things to go the way they did. So unless he absolutely needed the Warhammer, then it doesn't seem like Eren's actions in Liberio were necessary to him carrying out the rumbling. But that said, there are things that feel a bit off. One that people mention often in response to the leaks was when Eren Kruger, through the Attack Titan, mentioned protecting Mikasa and Armin. If this came from future Eren Yeager, then why would he talk about protecting Mikasa if she was going to die in the rumbling? I think it's possible though that came through from an earlier moment in Eren's life, when he was perhaps not yet aware of what would happen in the end, and when his motivation was a bit different. People have also said that it doesn't make sense that he cared so much about protecting Historia from being turned into a Titan before, but to me it still kinda does, because Historia with Beast Titan abilities would have been far more difficult for him to use to execute this plan than Zeke and a newborn baby. To me, the thing that seems strangest about this climax, basically this ending, because after this, chapter 139 would be expected to be an epilogue, is also one of the things that actually makes it the most interesting, and that is that if this leak is true, there's absolutely no payoff to basically anything Mikasa did in the whole story. Now this does massively subvert expectations, because Mikasa had such a huge role in Eren's life from the beginning of the story. She had Levi-like fighting powers, and she had the whole struggle of potentially having to kill the person she was most loyal to, because he became the biggest threat. And yet, here she would die without any of that really having had a proper conclusion. No romance, no Mikasa being the one to end Eren, no big heroic moment even, her death being no more of a sacrifice than anybody else's. And this really would make Mikasa just the same as most of the other characters, dying without ever really achieving anything, hammering home the harshness of the ending, as well as showing us that in achieving the ultimate goal of the Attack Titan, freedom, Eren has sacrificed everything that he once cared about. In this story, we've seen people die right before they could achieve what they wanted, like Erwin. We've seen people die having done what they set out to do, like Levi. And we've seen people die in a way that felt meaningful towards a greater goal. But in Mikasa's case, it feels like what she wanted, basically for Eren to be both safe and good, was an impossible goal in this reality. And so she died no closer to achieving it than when she started, in a futile battle where nothing she could do would help at all. So why do I think this will be the most divisive ending to a major series in recent years, if not ever? Well, because this ending is both exactly what we should have been expecting and completely fitting with Attack on Titan, but also a really bad ending where literally nobody is happy. including Eren, really, because while he's won at what the Attack Titan wanted, to move forwards towards freedom, not at any goal of protecting or making the world better for the people he cared about, who are pretty much all dead. It's not like a Game of Thrones Season 8 ending, which wasn't divisive, it just sucked. It's not like a Breaking Bad ending, which wasn't divisive because it gave a satisfying conclusion that was an appropriate mix of positive and negative for the show. It's an ending that will either be exactly what you wanted or the worst thing ever, depending on whether you were hoping for what was a surprising story that stuck to its themes, or for a story where there was some payoff for caring about these characters. To me, it's a better way for Eren's story to end than the way things might go if chapter 137 is considered the climax, and what comes next doesn't undo that whole "the Alliance wins" type ending. It's just more what I was expecting from Attack on Titan, but I can also see that people who don't like that level of nihilism in a story might have been hoping for an ending more in line with other popular theories, like that Eren did all of this in the first place just to bring everyone together, and that he wanted to lose to bring about peace. I'm going to wrap this up with one last thing that I do think is pretty cool with this ending though, and that is that with this being what happens, the story will basically have come full circle. We begin Attack on Titan thinking it's a story about the last of humanity, surviving in a world where everything else has been destroyed by Titans, and we end the story with that actually being true. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and if you've enjoyed this, please consider hitting the subscribe button for more anime, manga and light novel analysis videos, including more coverage of Attack on Titan as we get closer to knowing the true ending. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.